Hey, I'm Chetna. I'm an alternative healing coach. No, sorry, I'm only forgotten what I am.
That's fine.
So hey,
You are a lot of
everyone.
things.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sometimes it kind of get crazy for me also. So hey everyone, I'm an alternative healing practitioner and a life coach. Um, you know, over the last 5 6 months of this lockdown, I have been doing a lot of work online, a lot of conversations using platforms like Instagram to talk about various things that we're going through in life and various things that have come to light because of the circumstances created by this lockdown. And one of the reasons I started my practice, I chose to be a healer, I chose to be a coach. Um, Despite coming from a completely different background, I was into marketing and digital media, and I jumped into this was because I somehow, since childhood, have always believed that everyone has potential and everyone can do whatever they want to do. It's just that most of us can't figure out how. And because we can't figure out how, we give up on it, we resign to our fate, or we get frustrated and then cause a lot of internal drama that pulls us down. So, for me, one of the biggest things, or rather, my reason to be a coach and a healer is to empower everyone to live that potential if that is what they want to do. So, that's literally me in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Chetna, you have a lot of different mediums that you deal with. Can you tell us a little bit about the various mediums and what each of them do for you and why you've chosen so many diverse mediums?
So, that's an interesting question because compared to a lot of other healers and practitioners, I've chosen very few. So, when I got into the healing space, which was sometime in 2013, the space out here in Bombay, in India, was going nuts. You had a zillion techniques being taught, and everyone who learned a technique was only setting up workshops to teach more people to become practitioners and go forth with that technique. My very first technique that I learned was Oracle card reading, and then I learned chakra healing. But somewhere with these two, what I also realized, and I had a journey which is very similar to a lot of people have when they're getting into the healing world. Most of us say that I want to learn it, I don't want to practice it professionally, but I want to do it and see where it goes. And a lot of that is simply because we don't know whether we're willing to make a commitment to what it will demand of us, or we don't know how to make money from it. So we don't have trust and faith that this can be a income generating full-time profession. Right? This was back in 2013, which is not too long ago. It's like 7 8 years ago. But obviously the space has transformed. And during that time, one of the things I realized was that my forte is marketing. So if my forte is marketing, how can I bring that into this space? And I started to organize workshops with a friend of mine, Anata Meher, who both of you also know. And in fact, I learned from her. I learned Oracle card reading and chakra healing from her. Right. So for me, when I started working with her, we organized one workshop for a technique called BioTouch, which is a gentle touch healing to help the body come back into balance. So it helps through chronic ailments. It's said to be an ancient Egyptian healing. They have some hieroglyphics that have, been pulled out and said this is exactly what it is. There's a documentary on Netflix called The Pyramid Code, which has somebody called Hakim Iwan, who is no more, but he's what they call the keeper of the Bedouin tribe, and his daughters also learned BioTouch. And when they took the healing back to him, he was the one who pulled out the hieroglyphic and said that this isn't a new technique that was discovered in the 70s in Colorado, America. This is an ancient Egyptian healing technique which has come back because it's time for it. So BioTouch is something that I learned when I organized that first workshop of mine. And so by then I had BioTouch, I had Oracle card readings, I had chakra healing, and I was almost 2 years into this practice of being a healing practitioner. However, one of the things that I started noticing was that people would do BioTouch. I'd figure out where the emotional issue is that's causing the pain or preventing recovery, and we then go into chakra healing and you deal with those pieces. But two things happen in the chakra healing space. Now, usually when people do chakra healing, they do 3 or 4 sessions where they work on all your chakras. It's a very generic way. Chakra healing is done in different ways. They use crystals, they use sound, meditative guidance, Reiki, pranic healing, all of these, right? And I do meditative healing. But what I realized was, one, after the third time or so, the person becomes convenient because they know the story in the meditative healing. So they, internal resistance, the mind is brilliant. The mind can block off whatever it wants to block off. And the mind can pull up whatever drama it wants to pull up. So it would, I would see them not pushing through certain barriers that they should be pushing through. One. And two was, even after they would do all the sessions of chakra healing in the program that I had created, which is 8 sessions where we do 1 chakra at a time. So when you step into the room, there's no space for convenience. If you are coming in for a solar plexus chakra healing, there's no sense of trying to be convenient and saying, oh, I'm not going to deal with my anger issues or my anxiety. Whether you like it or not, you will deal with it. Because you're walking in with that space saying, today is my solar plexus healing. So by virtue of stepping into the room, you have put the intention out that you're willing to go down into that space, right? But after the 8 sessions would happen, I'd have people coming back in about 2-3 months, saying that they've fallen back into old patterns and a lot of old stuff is repeating again. So when I started working on this, I realized that while the subconscious was getting rewired, we don't live in the subconscious, we live in the conscious mind. And habits and patterns in the conscious mind were not changing. So that's when I decided to go ahead and do a certification in coaching, and I went and became a life coach. So for me, when I look at my techniques, to answer your question, one long story has come through, but to answer that question, I do biotouch, which is touch healing that allows me to work with your body. I then can move you to chakra healing if needed, because we have realized where your emotional patterns are that need to break, either for recovery or for healing the wound or the pain. And then we can go into coaching to figure out what are the conscious patterns that need to change. Now, it's not necessary that healing happens in this linear manner. I use all 3 techniques differently depending on who's coming to me. Someone may come in with just an emotional pain. Someone may come in saying, I can't meditate and I don't want to do touch healing because nothing's aching, but I want to do coaching because it's all in the mind. So it depends, but essentially for me, the 3 techniques stand for more mind, body, and soul. It literally connects that for me, right? It gives me a space to work in a wholesome manner. And as far as oracle card readings go, I mean, I do that more for love and more as an icebreaker. One of the first things that I tell people when they come in is, I don't predict the future. So if you're going to ask me whether you're going to have children 5 years from now, my first question to you is, do you want children and what are you doing for it? If you are saying, no, it's a long way off, then I'm going to tell you, don't bother. Don't ask me the question right now, right? So I don't go into the future. I don't predict because I don't believe in that. I don't see the point of going the crystal ball way. I feel it kills curiosity. But if you tell me what you want in the immediate future, say in this 1 year, then yes, we can pull out through the cards what blocks you are facing, what may come in your way, what mindset you need to shift, what you need to be doing to get to where you want. So I prefer using it in a far more constructive manner.
I love the amalgamation of the mind, body, and soul, and all the different things that you do, and how you brought it together, to be able to offer someone whichever way that they would want help in. But I understand the others a little bit more. Personally, I find it very hard to understand tarot cards, and now I don't know how oracle cards are different from that. If you can tell us a little bit about it, it would be helpful. And also, how does it work? Sorry, I'll let you proceed.
So I think we've had oracle, and not oracle cards, but the fact of reaching out into the oracle or reaching out to an oracle to know what is going to come through since ancient times. There used to be runes, there used to be astrology, looking at the stars and saying it. There used to be the what were they called? The seers in ancient times, right? The seers are people who could see. They could see different things and tell you that, oh, a war is coming, or something bad's going to happen in the clan, or you're going to face a difficulty, all of these things, right? So they were fortune tellers that have been there from ancient times. I think tarot came about something in, I don't know whether 17th, 18th, 19th century when it came up, but it came up more as another tool of divination and tapping into your intuition. And tarot at that point had a certain science, just like astrology has a science. It involves reading cards in a certain manner. It involves laying down the cards in a certain way. But somewhere in the last 10, 15 years, a whole different set of tools came up. There are angel cards, there are oracle cards, there are animal spirit cards. They're all different tools, pretty much like the tarot. They're decks, they're cards, but they're a lot more fluid. They're a lot more free-flowing. You don't have to place it in a certain pattern and read in a certain order. Every card has a certain representative message, but depending on who's sitting with you, you intuit, you join dots, you connect, and you say, okay, this is the guidance for you, right? So somebody may come to me and ask me a career question. Someone may come to me and ask me a love question, and the same card may come out, but the message will be different.
Chetna, I have two questions for you. And I know Manu's got a whole list, but why has Chetna become a life coach, and why has Chetna become, an alternate healer? Why have you chosen that path, and what got you on that path is the first question. And do you think that there is actual science behind? Okay, I'll let you finish this one first and then get to my next one.
Yeah, we are too excited.
Okay. So here's the thing. I honestly don't have a straightforward answer to the why. I have a slightly voodoo answer, which is what I call it, because I feel that strangely the universe set me up for this. I've been the in case of emergency number for friends since I was 13 or 14. I've been a problem solver, a person who rationalized and worked through whatever drama I went through since childhood. So it's not, for me, problem solving is it's like a hobby. I enjoy solving problems. This is who I've always been. Now, did I ever think that I would take this up as a profession? Not really. I didn't know that I would take this up as a profession. The other thing is, my dad was someone who was very interested in palmistry, meditation, all of these pieces. And somewhere growing up, that also has sat with me. So I've never been averse to it either, right? However, for me, when this happened, as in I learned Oracle card reading and I learned chakra healing, I already had another venture. I was in a food business where I used to run a basket subscription of foods from home chefs. It was called the Basket Case. And in 2013 or 14, and I was also working with burp.com as their digital head, communications and content head. So for me, I don't have a straightforward why I got into this. It just happened one after the other, and I just kept saying yes to it. Well, actually, that's not true. I said a lot of no's. I fought with my friend Anahata. But we had lots of conversations, and then after 3 days, I'd say, and she'd look at me and she'd say, "You're just going to do it. I know it." And I'd say, "What nonsense! You don't know anything. I'm not going to do all of this." And I would go into that. And then after 3 days, I'd go to her and say, "Okay, fine, Chal, I'm ready to learn. You teach me. Let's see what comes from it." So it was the most amusing year and a half, because every time she'd tell me to do something, I'd say no. So she'd tell me that, you should do chakra healing. You should be a chakra healer. And I said, my first reaction was, I don't want to be a healer. What's wrong with you? I'm okay being a reader. I'll read cards. I don't want to be a healer. And that's where, right in my intro, that's what I said, that a lot of people say things like, I will do this for myself and people that I love, but I don't want this to be a profession. Because one is, we don't know whether we are willing to take on the responsibility, because we don't know what it entails. Okay, I didn't know what it would entail. I didn't know that I would have to hold space in this manner for these many people. And I'd be able to do it the way I do it without getting affected. So that's one. And two is, I didn't know if it could earn me money. I was not willing to do something for free, because I had to earn money. I wanted to have a career, a profession that would allow me to live my life. So if I have to get into a profession which says that, oh, but this should be charity and it should be for good, then I didn't know if I was in that space. Then I didn't know if I was in that space to do it at that point of time. So the initial resistance is a lot. What also comes up, and this comes up for all healers. There's two things that comes up. It's called the healer's crisis. One is the imposter syndrome. So to say, who the hell am I to be telling people this? Like, do I even really know this? I mean, till yesterday, this was something I never thought of. Right? And that's one of the reasons why I chose to go down a path of getting certified in certain techniques, because I wanted that to be there so that my own confidence and sense of self, that question in my mind that said, do I even know what I'm doing, could be countered. Because my logical, rational mind could say, I've learned this. I know what I'm doing. Right? So there was that. I countered it in that manner. But, you know, why I chose it, it just happened by chance. I said yes to it after every third no. And I went into it, and I reached a point where I quit my job at Burp. I had to choose between the food business and this, because both were taking too much time. I knew I couldn't do both, and I picked the one that was more fulfilling and the one that felt second nature. You know, so by the time I jumped into being an alternative healing practitioner, I had already realized that this is second nature to me. It comes naturally to me. To sit and join dots and give perspective. And which is why I also say when I do oracle card readings, I'm not predicting. I'm simply joining dots. I can explain rationally why I give a certain answer to certain cards. I can break it down because I'm just joining dots for you and giving you perspective and saying what can come through. But the life coaching piece came about mainly because of how rational I am. You know, for me, the thing of you can go and do all the healing techniques you do, but if you don't change your habits, you don't change your language, you don't change your responses and your reactions, the same life is going to repeat. So for me, coaching was that last peg or the last piece in the puzzle, saying that no, this is needed because we have to live in the real world. People are not coming to me because they want to go to the Himalayas. I'm not going to the Himalayas either. So they'll do chakra healing and a lot of their life will change. However, will that allow them to make the changes in the conscious space as well? So yeah, that's why I became one. There's no why, I just did, it happened. But it makes sense. I was literally set up for it. That's my answer. I was set up for it by the universe.
Okay, that's a very good answer.
I love that you keep referring to the universe, and obviously even the oracle healing cards are messages from the universe that you put together.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
How does one be able to get these messages from the universe and be able to, receive them? I mean, what can everyone do to kind of become more available? Buy a set of cards?
Buy a deck of cards and read the book. It's as simple as that. The new age cards are so simple. You buy a deck of cards and you read the book. That's where you start. So every time you have a question, you pull out a card and you read the message in the book and see what resonates with you. Okay, now here comes the joining the dots part, which is important. Anyone can read a card because the book is there and the cards are there. It's as simple as that. However, and for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it a trick. The trick is to join the dots with what you are going through. Okay, firstly. The second thing to understand is that we are all intuitive beings. Forget human being, even animals, we are all intuitive. Animals know when there is danger. You know, the other day someone was telling me about a documentary that's coming in which they show how birds migrate months before a storm is going to come, depending on the intensity of the storm. So a bird knows in April that the storm or hurricane coming in September is going to be of X intensity and how far they need to fly. Right? So that's intuition. We all have intuition. The problem is we've become too logical, too rational minded, too science driven, and hence we need guarantees and explanation. The drawback of being science driven is you need a rational explanation and a guarantee for everything. And yet the irony in that is that even medical science or any kind of science cannot explain everything 100%. There's so much science is yet to discover. Right? So when you pull out a card, say somebody is going through a money crisis. They take the deck, they pull out a card, they read the book. right? You have to be able to read the sentences and say, what is resonating to me? Which sentence? There will literally be 1 or 2 sentences which will resonate with you. It's like when we used to read the horoscope in Midday or Times of India. You know, you'd have one line that says, oh, that's really happening to me, right? And it's a paragraph, but 5,000 people reading that paragraph are reading different parts of it in different interpretations. You are interpreting it as is aligned to you. So
Okay.
it's sometimes as simple as that. The other thing that you need, and this is where everyone falters and why everyone cannot be a reader, is because trust and faith is paramount. If you are going through a heartbreak and you're pining for the person to call you back, and you keep drawing a card and the first card says, no, he's not going to call you back, you're not accepting it. You're going to pull 3 more cards till you hear, yes, he's going to call you back. And therein you've pulled out false messages. Right? So trust, faith, acceptance, those are the pieces that make it hard. And which is why it may not be everyone.
Right. How do you balance the trust and faith in universe along with the logical thinking? I mean, for some people, it's very this way or that way, you know. There are very few, I think, who balance it. Yeah.
I think you know what, okay, and here's, this is an interesting piece. I actually read this in this book I'm reading called Breathe, Believe, Balance by Shamal. And he explains balance in a magical way, where he says that balance is fluid, it's not static. Have you ever seen the weighing scales that the bhajiwala uses, the vegetable vendor uses, the weighing scales, or the weighing scales we see in Bollywood movies, no? The weighing scale that's there in those courtroom dramas. If you notice them, the scales are always moving. The scales are never static. Yet the version of balance in our head is static. And that's where the biggest mistake happens. Balance is fluid. So you're not supposed to, it's not about this or that. Balance is being open to both and saying that it can be a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Right? So on some days I'll have faith and say, you know what, I'm just going to wait and watch. Because I've seen that and this is what it means to me. So I'm going to wait and watch. And in about 10 minutes or in 2 days or 3 days, something else happens which says, oh, look, you thought that and see that's happened. Now my logical mind says, you know, okay, I was in the right place. Right? Or my logical mind is going to look at it and say that, listen, if you're going to put your money in this, it's going to drown. You have to know that your logical mind is also a piece of your intuition. Because it holds wisdom and experience. So you're obviously saying that money is going to drown because there's some experience that's coming up. There's a red flag going up somewhere. Right? So it's not 2 separate pieces. They're actually pieces that are meant to work together. It's we humans who have decided to put it as 2 separate pieces. So fluid balance.
That. Yeah, balance is fluid. That's my learning for the day. Since my current objective is to be more balanced. Yeah.
It's
anyway.
fluid. It's fluid. You know, and so on some days you're gonna feel harrowed, ups and downs. On some days, it's going to be smooth flowing. The best way to understand yourself is to understand the tides of the ocean. On some days, the sea is stormy. On some days, if you are standing on the beach and you're just watching the tides roll in and roll out, it's such beautiful rhythm. It's such beautiful rhythm. And then on some days, on high tide, it's just lashing out. On low tide, you can barely hear it or see it. Right? So it's all different movements. And that's exactly how we are also as human beings. However, we are all chasing permanence. We're chasing staticness. And ironically, we are bored of permanence and staticness also.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So it's in that way.
Got it. Chetna, I'm going to go back a little bit. When you spoke about, when you were starting out from your first mediums and, finding more along the way, you had this concern of the income generating barrier. How did you cross that barrier? Get over, how did you decide that I'm going to quit the food business and burp and this is going to be my focus?
So burp, I was anyway going to quit. That had already come through because I'd started the food venture and it was doing fairly well. So I was anyway planning to quit burp. I put in my papers, etc. And then this happened parallelly at that point in my last 3 months notice period kind of a thing. By then my food business was already set up to a certain point. But what for me, I think I was very clear about the fact that whatever I do in terms of a career and profession has to earn me an X amount of money. I was very clear about that, and that was non-negotiable to me. So the two options that I had was to either run the food business and do this on the side, so expand myself to do two different things. Fortunately enough, I didn't have to expand myself, and I got to a point where I actually had to make a choice, because the food business was anyway not going to do very well, because although it was a space for home chefs, it was very nascent. And where I had started off with almost 20-25 home chefs, I was down to only 5 of great quality. And that was kind of blocking the concept that I had right from the beginning. So I knew that that wouldn't go further on, or it would be a bigger struggle. So it naturally progressed. But for me, the choice is never either or. And that's what makes the biggest difference. For me, the choice is always and. I'll do this and that. Why should I choose? And I'm like this even in life. I'll never say that I have to either work 12 hours or then party. For me, I've grown up saying work hard and party harder. So I live life in that format where for me everything is and. I will do this, and this. And I'd much rather expand myself than limit myself. So it wasn't a hard thing to do, but I feel that people falter because, and that's where, you and me, Manmeet, we worked on this, where we have said that willingness. What are you willing to do this? Now you know what it requires. Are you willing to do everything that it is asking of you? And willingness is where most people falter. And because I'm an and person, for me, willingness is very high. So, it was literally like that. The other thing that I was very clear on, like I said, for me, money was non-negotiable. So I didn't fall into the trap of, oh, this is for the good and this is God's work, so to say, and the universe has called me to do it and I won't charge a fee. No, I very simply always said, I'm giving you my time. I'm bringing X value to the table. This is my fee. I didn't even call it energy exchange and all. I walked away from the jargon very fast. Even today, I don't say energy exchange. Even when I do my online sessions, we never call it energy exchange. We say fee, the price, ticket price. It's very clear and straightforward, right? There's no jargon set inside it. I had a lot of people in the beginning who would say, oh, will you do a barter with me? I'll do this session for you. You do this with me. And I used to say, no. If I want to do a session with you, I'll pay you and do it. Even today, when I go for healing to any of my other friends who do, when I go to them, say I have a friend Eblet who does sound healing, and when I need recalibration, she's my person to go to. Or there's Ramona who does access bars, and I go to her. There's Aditi who does graphotherapy, and I go to her. It's very straightforward. I will pay you the fee, because an alternative healer, a life coach, an oracle card reader, whoever it is, they are offering you a service. And they're offering you their time, their knowledge, their wisdom, and they're adding a certain value to you. And that comes at a price. And there's no conversation to be had there, or there's no need to complicate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarity. I think it helps for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me, as a healer, you feel the need to visit other healers. You don't, I would think that you would be able to heal yourself. So that doesn't happen.
Two reasons why it doesn't happen. Specifically with me, I'm lazy. I can't be bothered to sit and meditate myself. I'm lazy. I'll get to it at some point, but I don't have that inclination at this point of time. I find it easier to go to somebody and surrender, right? Secondly, you want to be taken care of by others. Just because I'm a healer or a practitioner does not mean that I don't need TLC. So I will always go to someone else. I like that feeling. It makes me feel cared for. It makes me feel loved. It allows me to know that I'm human too, and I'm not above anything. And the third reason why I do go to other healers, and I say everyone should, even therapists and psychologists have their own therapists and psychologists, many times, or life coaches, because it's very hard to disassociate from your own pain. It's very easy to do it for someone else. And I can do it to a certain extent for myself, but sometimes I reach a point where I need another perspective, and I need someone else to knock, chisel out the brick a little bit.
I had a question, and I know Manu has more, but let me ask mine first because we're both fighting an inch to get in our question. But you mentioned that most people are chasing staticness and permanence. What are you chasing? Are you also in some way chasing the same thing? And is that what most people do? And how can we change that perspective?
I'm very clearly chasing growth and evolution. So I don't want static. I have no love for static. Good or bad, I'm willing to take both of it. And I'm quite okay with having the bad come in, because for me it's a natural, like, I don't flinch at it. I don't see the point of saying, oh, there's so much drama in my life, because it's part and parcel. I had 3 months that were great. 1 month will be rocky. 3 months will be great. So for me, I don't have that thing of everything should only be nice. That thought doesn't exist for me. I'm okay with having bits of both. In fact, I know that is exactly how it is supposed to be. And for me, it's an accepted fact. So static is not what I'm chasing or what I desire. I don't want permanence. I want growth and I want evolution. And I know growth and evolution comes at a cost of rocky times and good times. I also know that my one day, a single day, single 12 hours, is never a smooth flowing either. I remember this I think there's a video on my IGTV where I've put out saying that how many things can happen in 12 hours. I had 12 hours when I got some brilliant news in the morning and I was excited, I was ecstatic. And then during the day, I found out that someone that I knew, I mean, she was not someone I was close to, but was a friend's very good friend, committed suicide. And I had to help through that. And then towards the evening of that day, I had to go and conduct a workshop for 40 people. And that's all in one day. So see the amount that you can go through. So for me, the point is, how well do I flow through that day? How well do I flow through even the low times and the high times? That's what I chase. For me, that's the space that I keep looking at. And I feel that when people chase permanence or staticness, or people say they only want happiness or they only want things to be great, it's a lot of, you're building illusions in your head. You're setting yourself up for failure. You're creating expectations that are going to lead to disappointments. It's nobody else's fault. You're doing that to yourself because of a false belief that you are nurturing, that everything should only be happy.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Saiba, do you have another one?
I did. And Chetna, you mentioned that, you're an and person and you keep adding things to your bucket. So whatever the universe is sending to you, you just keep doing it. How do you deal with fatigue and frustration of things not working out when you're doing so much? And how do you deal with your own laziness?
I take lots of naps. My solution to life is naps. I promise, I swear, my solution to life is naps. When things are not going your way, go to sleep. When you wake up, something would have shifted, either inside you or outside of you. So even when I do sessions, if I have a client who has cancelled a session, I kid you not, I am under the blanket within 30 seconds. And I have a superpower. I can sleep at any time for as long as I want. Do not take it away from me. Thank you very much. So it's my superpower. I can sleep anytime, how much ever I want. So I take naps. One is that. Two is, I'm aware of frustration and I'm not averse to it. I'm willing to sit with myself when I get frustrated, when I get impatient, when I feel upset, when I feel sad. I'm willing to sit with myself through it all. There's something that I've been working on for a long time. It came through, the door opened up, it's gone in, but it's gone into pause mode for the last 2 months. And then there are news that comes out that hits the trigger and says, why is it not happening for me? And then I have to sit with that for a couple of hours. Then I have to get up and say, okay, calm down, it'll happen for you also. You took so long to get to it, so breathe, it'll work out. Then I tap into faith. And on some days I just go to sleep. I say, you know what, it's 8:30 at night, but I'm calling it a night. Good night. I'll deal with this tomorrow. And the tomorrow, I don't have to deal with it because my mind has processed something. So I feel either nap or then sit with yourself. If you're going to be averse to what you are feeling, that's where the pain comes up. The problem is that we're averse. We don't want to feel anything that is uncomfortable. We don't want to feel anything that is negative. You know, when people tell me, oh, I think negatively all the time, I want to tell them everyone thinks negatively all the time. Your mind has been built to make you survive. The only way it can ensure that you survive is by always making sure that there's no danger. If it has to always make sure that there's no danger, then it has to look for the faults. If it's looking for the faults, then you are thinking negatively. So it's by design that we are like this. But the intensity and volume of that negativity can be managed. Eliminating it is not an option. And we shouldn't eliminate it. We won't know how to, fight or flight won't come in. You know, if we eliminate that ability to think negatively.
Yep, things I have learned from you in the past while coming back. But tell me, what has been your hardest struggle? You're always helping people with their struggles. What has been your personal hardest struggle and how have you overcome it, if you have?
My hardest struggle has been my relationship space. I have never had any struggle, and I mean romantic relationships. When it comes to friendships, parents, siblings, clients, you know, lots of love. My life is full of love. I personally feel that at 40, I have a very successful life because I have very healthy, powerful relationships in my life. So for me, I'm in a good space because of that. Right. And career has always gone the way I want it to go. It goes into autopilot within modes. I have to keep inventing because I get bored, you know, and I have to say, okay, what new, which is why I do so much, because I'm able to take things into autopilot a lot of times very quickly. And it's an annoying habit. It annoys me sometimes, but it's also something that pushes me to do more and increase my capacity, which also I'm okay with doing, right? Because of the personality within me. But when it comes to romantic relationships, it's been a struggle because I didn't really see my parents have the healthiest marriage. And that created certain narratives in my head. And those narratives led me to have certain personality traits and make certain choices in very specific ways. One of the things that I learned literally 4 months ago, which was also hindering or rather blocking some of my other big aspirations, was that I'm so afraid of being rejected that I will walk away first. I'll cushion myself and do something smaller and then scale up so that I don't have to deal with rejection. I won't go out or, you know, I won't go all out right on the word go. And I don't do this just in relationships, but I do it in a lot of other places, right? So I think I built a lot of narratives in my head when it came to relationships, and I had to undo those narratives. It took me a long time. I think I really started undoing it only about 3 or 4 years ago. And strangely, about 10 years ago, yeah, that was when I broke up. So say about 15 years ago, you know, I was in a volatile relationship that brought all the narratives that I told myself and all the stories to the fore. And it was like the universe taking a sledgehammer and shattering each one of those illusions in very painful ways. You know, and when I got out of that relationship, my one statement was, I have done everything that I said I would never do in a relationship, in this one relationship. I've done everything that I said I would never do. And it took me a long time to heal from that. But I didn't walk out again at any point saying, from any relationship, saying that, oh, being single is better, relationships are rubbish, it's so much pain, I can't do it. I never said any of that. I always said part and parcel of life. It didn't work out. Come on, let me go out. What more can I learn? What more needs to change? But it was only about 3 or 4 years ago that I actually started changing the narrative in my mind. And literally till then, I'd learn pieces, I'd not learn pieces. You know, like Saiba asked me, frustration. Oh God, the frustration that I would go through, because I'd sit and say, now what more do you want me to do? Now I've got to change that also. I've changed this also. I don't know what more to change. You know, I'd go through that so many times. But again, like I said, I'd sit with my frustration. I'd sit with it. I'd say, you know what, okay, let me just cruise in this phase for some time. I'll figure out the answer. I'd give myself the space. And then I'd work from there.
Thank you for sharing that, Chetna. Will you tell us a little bit about the current narrative that you're living by in this space?
So my current narrative at this point of time is that the kind of relationship that I want is happening for me. It's slow and steady, also because I took as much time to reach this point. So if I want to have a romance that I would have when I was 20 years old, it can't happen right now. That's the reality. Not that, and forget whether the other person can give it to me or not. I can't sit with it. Like, I'm a different person, right? Also, the second thing for me is I don't want the kind of relationship, or I'm not the same kind of person in a relationship like a lot of my friends are, especially the ones who got married in their 20s. They have very different belief systems, and that's okay. And the third piece is that I have evolved into who I want to be for the kind of relationship that I want to have. And my external circumstances that earlier would, govern that narrative and influence the narrative of why love won't happen for me, they don't make sense anymore, and they don't stand there anymore. So exactly what I want and how I want will happen at the appropriate time for me. So will I have the kind of relationship that I want to have? Yes. Is it going to take time? Do I need to trust the universe? Yes, I do need to. It's still a space that is frustrating. I still see my fears coming up. I still see, a lot of, again, the right word is frustration and impatience coming up. But every time that has come up, there's also a space of saying, stand back, ask yourself what's going on. What do you need to change? I've also learned in this space to ask for help. So this is where I will reach out to friends who are healers and practitioners and do sessions, because it's too much for me to do it myself. It feels like too much for me to do it myself. I'd like to have somebody with me who can be that sounding board. So I do have friends who are sounding boards. I do have other practitioners that I reach out to when I do sessions with, so that I stay with the appropriate narrative. I think it takes work, and it's harder at this stage and age, because let me give you an example. Do I believe that every relationship should end up in marriage? Not really. I'm not someone, and this has been a conversation that I've had with friends for the last 20 years. I'm not someone who said, oh, there has to be marriage. I'd love to be married if that's a natural progression, but I don't believe in the narratives of put a gun to his head and, only then men agree. I don't want it. I'm okay. We'll see where it goes. So it's that, and that is something that was not acceptable to a lot of my friends. So to a lot of my friends, they're like, what is wrong with you? Commitment means marriage. And at some points I would give in to that, but at some points I would also back off and say, is it really for me? Like, I know that in my family, for my brother, commitment is marriage. But honestly, despite that, for me, it may not be. Right? And am I in a hurry to get married? Or not really. I don't want to have children. I've known this since I was 15. I've not wanted to have children since then. I've always said I want to adopt a child if I can, but I don't know if I will in this lifetime. I've also always said it has to be a child above 5 years old. I mean, I'd adopt a 15, 16-year-old teenager if I could. That's the space that I've come from. And not because I'm scared of babies, but because of the truth that kids above 5 and 6 find it harder to get adopted. So those are the babies I want to bring home. Right? But for me, it's turning around and saying that if I don't want to have a child, and today in this phase of my life, how mandatory is it for somebody to to say that let's get married? I'd love for it to happen. I'm happy to get married, but it's not a make or break for me. If I have to choose between being with a man that makes me extremely happy and we have a great relationship, versus getting married, like if I have to lose the relationship if I ask for marriage, I won't ask for it. It's not an important piece. It's not above the relationship itself.
Yeah, we are meeting more and more people who feel similarly, and about marriage and about children. And I don't know if it's something to do with our generations and or us just being around more like-minded people, that this is happening, that more and more people are choosing to do other things.
Manika, I also feel it has a lot to do with age, because a lot of us are getting into relationships worth conversations of marriage also much later in our lives.
Yeah.
Right? So the ones who fell in love and got married when they were 19, 20, or not 19, 20, but as in fell in love when they were 19, 20, or got married in their 20s, late 20s, whether because of parental pressure or family or because they wanted to, whatever, they are one set. And then there's another set that didn't follow that tide. They swam in a different direction. And the ones of us who have gone swimming in a different direction, we're reaching a point where you're turning around and saying, okay, I'm earning for myself. I have a home. I'm living a good life. I have this person that I'm in love with. We have a great relationship. It's going in the right direction. What happens if we don't get married? Do I feel like getting married? A lot of times marriage also comes up because it's what society says and it's what you've been led to believe, right? So proof of love is if the person is committed to you. And this picture of building a life together, living in that one house and living a certain experience together, making that home together. Now at this point, I don't know if I have that.
Yeah.
It may come at some point. I'm not averse to it, but it's not like number one.
Yep. Got it. Totally. Chetna, one interesting question coming your way. Do you believe that we all have a purpose? And if yes, how does one find it?
Look, at a very base level, I say this: the human purpose, the purpose of a human journey, or even the journey of an animal or a plant, the purpose on this world, whatever form you've chosen this journey in, is to evolve. That's a universal purpose for every single one of us. Some of us may choose to, some of us may not choose to. At a very base level, physically you will evolve. You will go from being a baby to an adult and going back to dust. That evolution is mandatory and non-negotiable. Now, will you evolve emotionally and intellectually and spiritually? Yes, by nature and by virtue of how life moves. And society and relationships and experiences that you have. Again, certain parts are natural and organic. However, will you consciously choose to evolve and become whoever you were meant to be? I don't know. And that's a personal choice that we make, right? What I do believe is that life purpose is not equal to career. I mean, when someone even says this to me, so now it started irritating me. Because in my head, I'm saying, are you telling me that a housewife has no purpose? Are you telling me a child who's born with Down syndrome has no purpose? I mean, the audacity and the gall of your being to say that life purpose is only equal to career. And anyone else who doesn't have that is purposeless and useless and their life has no meaning. Just like imagine the intensity or the repercussion of that one belief that we are building. My mom was a housemaker. You're telling me my mom had no purpose? Your mom is a housemaker. You're telling me your mom has no purpose? Right? So it's such an absurd thought that we as a society has propagated and now gone and chiseled into stone. And you're sitting there and saying it. But, to find your life purpose for me is, it's like, I don't know, those who have been in advertising might resonate with this. Even for you, like as an architect, you'll resonate with this, where it says, your client gives you a one-line brief. I want my house to feel like this, or I want my space to look like this, or I want the ad campaign to be like this. There's a one-line brief. For me, purpose is that one-line brief. And you have to discover that one-line brief. If you ask me what my one-line brief is now, when I look back at my life and given the journey I'm on right now, it's to change lives. And I don't change lives just as a career. I do this as a friend. I do this as a sibling. I do this as a parent, as a child, as a daughter, whatever way. It's omnipresent. It touches every aspect of my life. I change lives even in my hobbies. I change lives even when I travel. When I'm on a trip and I sit down to talk to somebody who is creating a handicraft piece on the road, and I'm buying that piece and I'm talking to them and asking them about their journey, I've changed lives. In having that conversation, I've touched a person in a certain manner. Right? But for me, and finding your purpose does not come by just figuring out what you are good at or what you love to do. It's a combination of what you are good at, what you love to do, what is your nature, your base nature. Who have you been as a child, the base nature that you had as a child? Which is where I say that I've been taking care of people in my life since I was 13. Maybe even earlier, and I don't have memories of it, but who knows? As a child, different situations, when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I actually did that when I was 7 years old.
So
right?
it seems like you've definitely made your purpose into your career. That's the best scenario, right?
I have, but I didn't know if I could. I mean, if I look back 7 years ago, I had a different career and I was doing this. Would I still continue to do this had I not made money from it? Yes, but it would have been in a smaller way. And my purpose in life would have still been to change lives. I mean, even when I was running the basket case, which was a food venture, it was still tied to my purpose. I was changing lives. I was telling people, home chefs, how they can market their goods.
Right. I'm going to go back. Sorry, finish.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit to when you said about evolution, that this is the essential purpose. How can one evolve? Like, in general, what is your advice in terms of, if you know you want to evolve, what are the different ways that one can, go into to get into the process?
Can I supplement what you're saying as well? So what Mano is saying is, I guess, on evolution, and I think I just want to juxtapose that with having a base nature as well. So if you have a base nature and then you want to continue to evolve, what do you do with that, and how do you change your base nature and continue?
One is, why do you want to change your base nature? Your base nature is what you accept and what you work with, including your flaws and your strengths. Because every flaw of yours will be a strength in some situation. Someone who is lazy will take longer in certain projects, and who knows what that protects them from. Because that project may require a different pace, a slow pace, and your laziness made it possible. And you didn't get harmed as somebody else who ran faster. Right? So your flaws, our flaws also are strengths, and our strengths are also our weakness. My strength to say and can cause fatigue. But what someone sees as flaws when I sleep so much, and I truly am an oversleeper, what someone sees as flaws is actually also a strength in so many situations. So nothing is ever black and white. Everything has a certain purpose. And you have to know that when I say base nature, I mean the nature that you were born with and not what you were nurtured into being. Changing what you were nurtured into being, conditioning, is a different story. But base nature is something that you were born with, and something that, and the majority of it is what you are meant to have. It's the tools that you need for this lifetime. There may be some pieces of your base nature that you're supposed to break free of or break through, because that's part of your evolution and growth. But that will become louder because of your conditioning and nurturing, and you will automatically know that you need to get rid of it. Right? So let me give a hypothetical situation. Okay, say that, and for anyone who's watching this hypothetical situation, I'm not going into any kind of science out here, just story. Okay, imagine this, that there was somebody who was a serial killer in one lifetime. Okay, and assume that there are many lifetimes and you're reborn. Let's go with that hypothesis. Okay, so someone was a serial killer in one lifetime. In the next lifetime, they are born with, the soul chooses a different journey. Soul chooses to be, say, an architect. Okay, decides to go down that way and build homes. And also in doing that becomes a charitable human being. But the one trait that they have is aggressiveness. And they have anger issues since childhood. Right? Now, if I look at it energetically or from a spiritual point of view, I'm saying that baggage from the previous birth, aggression coming out here, needs to work around it. And as he grows up, he or she grows up, conditioning will pull the anger and make it louder and louder. And it may push this person to go take anger management therapy. It may push this person to go do some sort of healing and break through that baggage. So something that came in his or her base nature, when it needs to change, will show up even through nurture and conditioning. It will turn up the volume in it. And you can work through it. Right? But otherwise, base nature largely is what you live with and work with, and that's your foundation. You build upon it.
Okay, just staying with the same thing. How do you identify your base nature and what is conditioning? Because you start getting conditioned from when you're an infant almost. So how do you
My base nature to always care for people and love people is evident in the fact that, or me being, okay, positivity is base nature for me, because as far as I can remember, my mom used to always say, you always woke up with a smile. You were always the one who woke up, no matter what was happening, you would smile, come running, you were always chirpy. I've been told from many people that I've always been a chirpy person, and as far back as my memory goes, I am a chirpy person, right? That chirpiness can be conditioned into very high tolerance and zero ability to place boundaries. Can happen. Right? So self-awareness is what allows you to understand what aspects of you is base nature and what aspects of you is conditioning. That's awareness. That's discovery. So to answer your question also, how does one, figure out their purpose and how do you explore and how do you evolve is through exploration. You have to explore yourself and observe yourself in different situations. Your base nature is what will come to you very naturally. So if you are conditioned to be a happy person, there'll be conflict in that zone. But if your base nature is to be a happy person, if you're born with that trait, it'll come very naturally to you. Base nature comes up very naturally. It also shows what you love to do. Like for me, I love to have a good time. I'll have the worst day of my life and my answer is to go out. Because I love to have a good time. I'll flip it with that. I'll run to what comes naturally to me. It comes naturally to me. Was I someone who slept as much as a child? Oh God, yes. I used to sleep for 4 hours after school. 4 hours. I don't know any other child who sleeps 4 hours after school. I used to come home at 2:30 and sleep till 6:37. My tuition teacher used to come and wake me up at 7. Base nature since childhood. I was a kid who my mom would wake up and I'd go and sleep next to my dad and always miss my bus. So for whatever reason, these are traits that I can remember as far back and which seem natural to me. I was not conditioned to sleep this much. I wasn't conditioned to be a very happy person because I didn't come. My family was very resilient and we all like happy-go-lucky, but it was also a very dysfunctional family because the marriage was not stable. So I've worked through all of that also. So when I look at that and I say, despite all of that, if I have this nature, then this is base. So only when you explore, when you observe, when you sit in awareness with yourself, when you put down your likes and dislikes, your preferences and what you don't prefer, when you put down what's okay with you, not okay with you, what makes you happy, what fills you with joy, what fuels you. When you put down all of these things, then you can start understanding how, where, what needs to evolve. Most of us are moving through life with zero self-awareness. I run a journaling program. It's 21 days. I ask some of the most base questions and I get replies of what do I answer for it? And I find it amusing because I'm saying that what are your 5 strengths? And they're like, what do you mean by strengths? I can only think of 3. Is 2 okay? What do you remember a time when a weakness or a flaw of yours was a strength? No one's even thought like that. They don't even realize that a weakness or a flaw can be a strength. Right? So we don't ask ourselves the right questions. And I think what we need to start doing is asking ourselves the right questions. Don't ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what do you want? And what can you do to make it happen? It's a huge difference between those 2 questions. It'll take you in 2 very different directions. So how do you evolve? How do you grow? Self-awareness. Become your own friend. Ask yourself questions and listen to what you are saying without judging. So you say you don't like coffee, but all your friends like coffee. Why is that becoming a reason to feel like you don't fit in? Or why are you struggling so much to fit in? Where did you learn to be a people pleaser? Where did you learn this thing that you have to belong? Were you always like this? Or did you learn it because you saw your mom say something or dad say something or you were told something? Were you always an obedient person? Or because you were told on repeat by your parents, you're my good child, you'll do what mama says, you'll always listen to daddy, that you became an obedient kid? Which one?
Chetna, on this note, I'm going to ask you for, besides what you've shared with us, some really interesting points on, self-awareness and other things that one can do. If there's any other favorite tip or hack, you have many, like gazillion, I know that. But what is your one or two favorite ones that, is a sure shot and everyone must keep in mind?
Write things down. Write every thought of yours down. And write because you want to have a conversation with yourself and not because you want to just rant or vent. So if you are overthinking, oh my God, I keep overthinking about that. Great. I'm glad you overthink. Everyone overthinks because an emotional trigger, it's being slammed. Why don't you write what those thoughts are? Number one. Number two, ask yourself questions. Question everything. Ask yourself questions, not out of a sense of resistance or a sense of ego or a sense of rebellion, but from a desire and a need to understand. Why do I like this? Why do I not like that? Why did I make this choice? What was I thinking of when I did that? Question yourself and be curious. I feel what we have lost is curiosity because we're chasing guarantees. We want guarantees and 100% outcome. So we're not even curious. So for me, write everything down, or as much as you can. Use pen and paper. For those who cry about writing and are lazy, well, use your phone and use the notepad. Fair enough. I'm not going to fight that. That's okay. But also ask yourself the right questions. Don't just write everything. And it's like I tell a lot of my clients, and I say this to my teenage kids. I have a support group for teenagers, and I tell them this. I say, please don't buy your own bullshit. Kindly ask yourself, this drama that you're feeding yourself, ask yourself. Don't buy your own bullshit. We feed ourselves a lot of rubbish. And if you just change your narrative, so much comes up. So.
Yes, I have observed a little bit of that in myself. So I know what you're saying. It is very helpful. Yeah, I could write some more though. I don't do enough of the writing. I'm also so lazy, and so busy with doing other things, but yeah, still no excuse.
But it's you use it, don't make it into a pressure point. Like I said, on some days, just pick up your phone and jot it down. Right? Just jot it down. Like when you're walking, because something is annoying you, just write down what's annoying you and see how that affects you.
Yeah. Definitely noted. Chetna, I'm going to move into a little bit about what do you do for yourself besides taking naps? What are your practices? What helps you? What is your routine?
Well, to be very honest, and I'll say this, I use more of coaching tools than I use the healing. Although I do biotouch on myself wherever there's aches and pains very often. I love the technique. It's very hard to do it for yourself because you don't disassociate with the pain, but it still helps in many ways. But I use a lot of my coaching tools and coaching techniques that I use for everyone else, which is why I know it works and which is why I can break it down the way I can. I've realized, and again, this is self-awareness, right? I've realized I'm a mind person. So when I know I'm a mind person, I'll go down that route first. And I'll figure things out from there. So for me, writing things down, jotting things down. I mean, if you come, you'll notice I have lots of diaries and books lying around. I'm always scribbling ideas. I'm always breaking things down. Even when I'm having a tough time in a relationship and I want to express myself, if you look at my notepad on my phone, long messages have been typed out in my notepad because I need to express myself, and then I can edit that and send it. So I do a lot of that for myself. For me, that's one aspect. My second thing in self-care is naps is the second thing. My third thing is to spend a lot of time with people that I love, with my friends. I always make it a point to work hard, party harder. That rule is non-negotiable for me. I mean, right now in the lockdown, yes, I haven't gotten out, but I remember we were sitting in Egypt, at night with all the participants of our retreat. And I was asked saying that you go out every night. And I said, yes, I go out every night, Monday to Sunday. And it could be to a friend's house. It could be for dinner. It could be to just to party. It could be anything, but I go out Monday to Sunday. Every evening. I finish work at 9 o'clock, I go out. My dad is only screaming all the time saying, every night you want to go out? And I say, yes, every night I want to go out. Because I work from home. I work from morning, at that point I was working in the morning from 11 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. I did 4 or 5 sessions in a day with just a lunch break in the middle. And for me, this was how I used to, come back up. So I would go out, spend time with friends, do things that I love to do. I also, for me, my mornings are very important. I'm not a morning person. I don't like having mornings where I have to get up and run. People who say, like yesterday I had a client who said, oh, I started waking up at 4:30 to exercise. Do you think that's a good thing? And I said, you're asking the wrong person. Because for me, 4:30 a.m. is an ungodly hour and it's a sin. 9 a.m. is early for me. If I can sleep till 12 o'clock, I will do that and wake up late and work late in night. I'm that person. I have maximum energy in the second half of the day, not in the first half of the day. Now, this is my nature and I don't want to change it. I don't see any need to change it. People who say, like she said, and I've heard a lot of people say this, oh, by 9 o'clock, half my day is over. And in my head, I'm saying, yeah, I'll give you the Nobel Prize. What are you going to do with the rest of your day? So you finished it by 9 o'clock. You finished your day by 9 o'clock. What's the big deal? What's the big accomplishment what are you going to do from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock? Please tell me that. So for me, I take my my nature and my preferences into account. I don't fight it. I like having 2 hours with my coffee in the morning. I like it. I will give myself that. I'm not arguing with myself and saying, oh, but it has to be like this. And who says who? So I think these are the pieces that I do to take care of myself. I accept myself and I don't question myself and I work around myself. Instead of constantly badgering myself. That's one thing I don't do. I don't badger myself. I'm very easy with myself, and I don't badger anybody. I mean, even like with you, Manmeet. I mean, even with clients, so they come up with something, they have an obstacle, we'll work through it and around it. Badgering is not, unless you've reached a point where you are really feeding yourself bullshit, and you need some tough love. That's a different story. But I don't believe in badgering yourself. I think that's one of the worst things that we do to ourselves. So for me, that's a no-no.
I also love the cut out the bullshit side of you, and I tell people about it. I was like, that it's amazing that someone tells you that to your face and you know it, but you just need someone to tell you that. Yeah.
Exactly. Like for instance, someone like I'll wake up in the morning and I'll say, okay, I've woken up at 8 today and I've got so much to do, and in my head, and my immediate next response is, you aren't going to move till 10 o'clock. So take your coffee and sit down. And that's it. That's literally what I call myself out on it, because I know I'm not going to. So why pressurize myself and do all of this, and ruin my morning? And if I really want to change it, then I will work towards it. If there is something that I really want to change, then I will work towards it. Then again, that I will not buy my own bullshit, because I'll take myself back to the reason why I chose it.
Right. Chetna, I feel like we're coming to an end. It's been over an hour now. But tell me something. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought because I was thinking of 2 things to ask you. But besides work hard and party harder, is there any other mantra that you live by, that you hold really dear to you, on a serious note, that you hold really dear to you, or an affirmation that, helps you out sometimes?
For me, faith is very important. Faith is very important. I will pray, and I pray in different ways. Some days I go to Mount Mary Church because that's where my mom used to go. For me, that's a special place. Some days I will pray, like literally how I looked up and said, don't take my sleep away. I have all these disclaimers that I keep throwing up. So faith is very, very, it's my core. I have tremendous amount of faith. I believe in the universe, and things are not all explainable. You can't explain everything, and we're not supposed to explain everything, right? So that for me is one very big piece. My other piece is that everything is possible. What may not be okay for me is okay for someone else. What may be unfathomable for me is a reality for someone else. Everything is possible. There is no such thing as this cannot happen. There are lots of this should not happen, and that's subjective. But the open-mindedness that I practice is, again, core for me. It's what allows me to be who I am in my work and in my personal space. Because when everything is possible, then there's that much of acceptance for everyone and what everyone is thinking and going through. So rejection is very low for me.
Okay. Yeah, basic things that we don't keep in mind, I think. Saiba, is there anything more you want to ask?
Yeah, and I unconditional acceptance, right? Unapologetically and unconditionally accept yourself. You can always change what you want to change, but you should have good reason for changing it also. And it's very important that all of us start practicing unapologetic acceptance of ourselves. And let me also say this: accepting yourself unconditionally and unapologetically does not mean that you are not aware of your flaws and what needs to change. It's not the same thing. It's not one and the same. It means that I accept even those things that are supposedly not right about me, and I'm willing to work towards changing. So that's very crucial.
No, this has been a really good talk, Chetna. Thank you. Before we let you go, I had one question though, and this is just cutting back to the comment that you made earlier, which was read the book and understand the cards. What is the name of the book?
No, I didn't get this. Leave the book in.
You said
the Oracle book. The
Oracle book.
Is there when you buy an Oracle deck, it comes with a book. It has cards in it and a book in it, and that book has explanations of each of the cards and what it represents. So, which is what I meant. You pick up the book. So you take the card, you pull out a card, you read from the book which comes with that deck. You know what that card represents, and then you keep that book aside and you start joining dots for yourself.
And do you think there's a science behind it?
For me, I don't want to know whether there's a science behind it. I like the idea that it's so esoteric, no? Like you don't know. Like there's a curiosity to it, because every time that someone pulls a card which is magically aligned to what they need to know, it keeps you in a space of wonder. It amazes me even today that the same card can come up with different messages for different people, and I don't want to let that amazement go. So I don't want science to prove anything or discover anything in this one area. I'd rather it not be touched, because it's just such a it's fun, it's joy to say that, ooh, this can happen. How did this happen? For me, that curiosity is exciting. So I don't want science to explain it. I'd much rather not.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Chetna, we have asked the ones we interviewed before you, 3 people, and we're requesting you as well, if you would like to give us a little message that we can sometime later maybe make it a chain, like as a memory for us. It can be anything that you think on what we are doing, or something that you think we should do.
How about I do this for both of you all, since we are talking about this? Let me get my deck and let's pull a card for the Heart Collective. Let's do that.
Yes,
okay,
let's do it.
I'm gonna get the deck. It's right here. Give me a second.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm prepared for the answer.
I promise not to scare you.
Okay.
Yeah, don't be so scared, Saiba.
Yeah.
Okay, so
base nature.
Right? So you get a book,
Okay.
and you get the deck with it. And I'm just gonna hold this up so you can just see. The book has I don't know, where's the camera there.
Yeah.
It has messages written in it.
Okay.
And that message is connected to. You'll have an image, yeah. So say for instance that message is connected to that card. Can you see the image on top?
Yeah.
There's a card of that same image in here, and the messages are there in it. So you can read, sometimes as simple as that, just read. But like I said, the trick with this, or the drawback, is that we get so caught up in the answer that we want because your rational mind is saying, no, I don't want to say, I don't know if I'm prepared for the answer. Right? Okay, so first of all, tell me the exact name of the brand name that you guys have.
The Heartwork Collective.
Okay, so I'm going to ask both of y'all to give me one number between 1 and... Okay, Manmeet, I want you to give me a number between 1 and 7 first.
3.
Okay. And I'm going to shuffle this deck. And Saiba, can you give me a number between 1 and 11?
7.
Okay, so here's the interesting piece here. Manmeet, you pulled... Sorry, did I disappear? Here. Okay, so Manmeet, you pulled the yin card, basically, which means the element of water. It's the emotional energy, need to go with the flow. Don't try to jump ahead of where you all are going. Take it one step at a time. Don't go into result rather than move through the flow of it, and because that will give you a chance to improvise as you go in, right? The card that Saiba picked up is, I'm going to try and see if I can move it. Yeah, here. Okay, so the card that she picked up is Unfinished Symphony, which basically means that there are loose ends to tie. There is closure. I don't know whether individually you are still doing other things other than this, which have to be closed, doors that have to be closed maybe, or certain decisions that have to be taken, or whether in the Heartwork Collective itself, you both have started certain things which you all were unsure of, you all parked it aside for a while, and certain calls and decisions need to be taken. So that needs to happen at this point of time, possibly in the month or 2 months from now.
I have another full-time gig. I'm a lawyer.
There you go. So so maybe what you're figuring out is how to balance both.
I am.
And instead of waiting for someone else to tell you how to balance both, figure out your own way. You don't have to give up either of them. That's not what it means. It means that that question in your mind of how you're going to balance both needs to be put to an end.
Yeah.
You need to take a call. I'm working on. Give yourself closure, because that's not going to come from outside.
Okay.
Right? So that workings of how you all are going to divide time and role, etc., that needs to be given in right now. Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you all to give me one number from 1 and 11 for the next 3 months of the Heartwork Collective. This is not your role in it, but 3 months. So both give me a number between 1 and 11.
9.
9.
Both are picking 9? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Completely blessed time. Everything that you want is falling into place. It's a great idea. It's a great venture. There's a lot of opportunity here. There are a lot of, well, to sound voodoo, it's a miraculous time and space, because things will fall into place, and help will come from areas that you never thought it would. Opportunities will happen that you didn't really think about. So a lot of abundance is going to flow. That's essentially what's in store for the next 3 months.
Thank you.
You are most welcome.
I don't know whether to thank, thank you and the universe for bringing us this card. It's very important.
Yeah. Saiba, did I scare you?
No, I think it was very on point. And I think I'm experiencing both. In fact, I think we are getting help from places we didn't expect. And, personally, I'm in the exact place that the card picked up, that I picked up.
And that's the space where, if I have to connect it to the questions that you asked, I don't know if I want science to explain how that exact card came out, despite us sitting connected by technology and me asking you to pick a number.
Yeah.
Right now, how and why you got that message, I don't know. I didn't know you were a lawyer. Even if Manmeet has mentioned it, I'm absent-minded professor. So, I'm wondering, but even for me to interpret it in that way. Now, let me tell you where the logical mind came in. Okay, I know that this is something that, I know that Manmeet has a full-time gig. And this is something that you all are doing together. So when I see that, apart from the energy that I'm feeling, I'm also turning around and saying that, okay, I know that there are other things on her plate that might need to be tied up. It's just logical. It's just logical. I know you all have started this as a second piece. Right? So that's me connecting the dot and saying that, okay, that's what this means. The same card, when it comes out in a relationship space, can mean you need to let go of something, either a fight or break up. Right? Closure, moving on. It can mean that. In a career space, it could be about quitting your job, or about, you know, putting to rest that promotion that you didn't get and moving on from that situation. So many different messages from one card. But the fact that I could give you a perspective that resonated with you is where wonder and amazement comes in for me. And if science explains this, it'll take the fun out of it.
I
I totally agree. Yeah, we have
Right?
Saiba on board too.
I mean, it'll take the fun out of it. Yeah, what's the point with three girls sitting and saying, let's pull cards and see? The joy of it is gone if you can explain it.